So in this video, I'm going to be analyzing my world record adventure mode run for Insaniquarium Deluxe. Some people have been asking for it. I think it'd be nice to, talk about the game at a deeper level for people, who might be interested in speedrunning it or just curious about like decision making for the run, stuff like that. So we'll get started. So the first thing is RNG. It's the biggest, most annoying thing in this run. I'd say like the only time save that you can get besides RNG is just like minimizing damage. Like this whole run is just damage control. Like there's no like way to really speed it up. It's just trying to minimize your time loss. So yeah, the first bit and throughout the entire run of RNG, you'll see that, you always start out with 2 guppies or in tank 4 a breeder. And these guppies are special compared to the normal ones, which I'll get to that later. But all you need to know now is that a guppy can grow with good RNG, and here was perfect RNG, in 2 like brown pellets. So you'll see at like the start of the, feed them once, and then when feeding them again, they'll grow immediately to medium size. And you want them to grow because the things at the top like unlock. Like I can buy another guppy. Well, we don't buy a guppy because to save money you actually don't need to. But back to the RNG, the 2 initial guppies can grow with the brown pellets from like 2 to 4 different foods, and a bot guppy or like a prego made guppy always have like kind of lower stats, and so like these guppies are like the super guppies. Yeah, this first tank, have no pets or anything to really speed it along. And, once the guppy grew big, the game stopped yelling at us to buy a guppy, and we just wait for coins to accumulate to get the piece, and then we go next. Now, Stinky the Snail is useless for a speed run. He just collects things. He might get like 1 or 2 things throughout the run, but like really just useless. Yeah, we get 3 guppies here to just kind of accelerate the money a bit. I have like a whole like kind of page of notes. It helps kind of like for remembering, but when I was doing this run I probably didn't have them up because I just knew it at that point. Oh no, we get 4 guppies, okay. Been a while. So yeah, I mean really there's nothing special about this tank, just kind of go through it. There's no carnivores yet, just same as last, just hoping for RNG. Oh, I guess there's a minor thing here actually. So, and I think I actually mentioned it in the video. So, you see that when the guppy grew large, the pill food unlocked, which unlocks the eggshell. You have to do that, unlike the last tank where the guppy could grow to big and it would unlock the egg part. A tiny little strat is, if we go back a bit, is to feed the medium guppies first, so that way when they grow like this, so that you have the green food to grow the rest of your guppies, like so you get them to grow faster, because the green pellets and the pill food exponentially grow your fish at a faster rate and keep them more satisfied. Yeah, that's why you'll see later we use Zorf for a good amount of the run, and we'll get into that when Zorf appears. Yeah, Nico the Oyster is very useful. He's the second best money making pet behind Shrapnel. He makes a pearl like the initial 34 seconds and then every 40 after that, which is weird. So you see at 34 seconds Nico creates a pearl and gives you a good chunk of change, and then it's every 40 seconds after that. So like a minute 14, minute 54. I don't know why it's 34 initially, but he gives us a good amount of money. You see at the top, carnivores cost 1,000, and Nico kind of gets us, with good RNG, gets us to 1,000 kind of right before the alien appears. It's ideal to get the carnivore bot before the alien appears, because the carnivore's timer gets like put on for when he drops a diamond, and I think I get him here, yeah, just in time. And that's always kind of like a good metric for if you're ever running it yourself. Like that's like fast, you got good RNG. And that's really all there is to it. The frustrating part about the game is that a good amount of it's RNG, so there's not much to do yourself in some of these tanks, especially the earlier tanks. 1.5 it gets kind of hectic, I guess. Gives you a glimpse of the rest of the run, the amount of carnivores and clicking you have to do. Yeah, so we get 4 carnivores here, and like we get more and more throughout. like each tank, you know, it accelerates because the egg price goes up each tank, etc. I'm assuming people kind of know the game at a fundamental level. Yeah, that's it for this tank. We unlock Itchy, the swordfish, who deals a bit of damage. I believe he's as strong as a level 1 laser, like each of his hits, which is it's not bad, but you know, we would rather have a money-making pet later on, but he's decent for the 2 tanks that we use him. So in this tank, you know, it's just the same as last time. We get 3 guppies and then we get 7 carnivores. I guess something I can explain on this tank is the iframes on the aliens when you hit them, which you'll see shortly when the alien appears. So basically, hitting an alien, you know, it'll like flash white, and while it's white, it can't be hit again. You'll be able to see this a lot more clear later in the run when we have Blip that shows the health bar. But so Sylvester takes 9 hits to kill, and that's Sylvester's the blue alien, and then 22 for Balrog, which is this one. So now Itchy is helping speed up that process, but you know, I'll go back and you'll see that it's like, you see how he's flashing white. I'll even slow it down to kind of give a better emphasis. So when he's white like that, Itchy can still hit him, like the attacking pets, and that's how it's even sped up. But when it's flashing white, another click doesn't hurt the alien anymore. So sometimes you'll see me like rapid click, which is I guess the most efficient because you want to, you know, hit it as quick as possible outside of those times. Sometimes you'll see me like bounce around between like 2 things. You'll see in some later tanks I'll like click because I'm just like trying to maximize the efficiency of damaging them while they're iframed, which I'll bring that up again when we're at that point. So I guess I can also talk about my clicking method. So what I do for when I'm clicking very fast, like usually when I'm hitting an alien in a corner or like, you know, buying a ton of things at once or something like that, I use my left index and left middle finger on my mouse, like my left mouse click, and I use my right hand to move the mouse around. So I think that's really it for this tank. So here we get Prego, and we use, you know, we switch out Stinky here. Now Prego isn't that time saving. She saves less money than Nico gives in like the amount of guppies made and stuff, but it definitely does help. So yeah, you don't buy guppies here because Prego could make one, and you can usually get enough money because you save money on not having to buy guppies. You get, you know, your benchmark 1,000 coins to buy a carnivore before the alien spawns. So yeah, that's it for this tank, really. Yeah, it gets a bit hectic when there's like 9 carnivores. Now, if you want, like if it's a bit too much, and this goes for the rest of the game, you know, you can always buy like a few less carnivores if it's too much to click to keep them alive and stuff. But this tank isn't that bad in relative. Okay, so there we unlocked Zorf, and we'll talk about him in a second. But right here is the bonus round, and you might think that, oh, it's just a bonus round, you click shells. Okay, so one thing people don't know, oh, actually, I guess talk about this too. So something people don't know is that you can, there's usually like an animation for this shell like cracking and popping, but you can just click it and it just skips the animation, you can just immediately go, and you only have to wait like a tiny bit. As you can see, it says like please wait at the bottom. So the time save, quote unquote, for the bonus round is that the bonus round ends once all the shells on the screen are gone. So you see towards the end, I just kind of click all the shells as quickly as possible to finish it and then go next. Oh, and another thing with clicking through to skip things, you can click through the start of the 3, 2, 1 bonus round start, which I see some people not do, and it makes me a little bit mad every time. Alright, so that's it for 1.5. Now we get rid of Itchy, and we bring out Zorf, who I don't know if I get good RNG here. Yeah, you see now Zorf not only saves us money on our food pellets, you don't have to spend the 5 per, but he uses the green upgraded food already. So the initial guppies, as I said earlier, you know, they can grow in 1 green pellet right away. So with this tank, it's really straightforward. It's all RNG. There's nothing to deal with. The only alien you have to deal with is Balrog, which is, you know, one of the easiest aliens to deal with. You don't buy any guppies here because Prego gives you some, and Zorf, feeds up your guppies. Now the thing with Zorf that you have to be careful of is sometimes, he's a bit slow to feed them because he only drops out pellets when the guppies are green, like they're hungry. So you want to like watch, and if it's like, a while since a guppy got eaten, then just be ready to feed it so they don't die. So we unlock Clyde, which is useless to us. And now, we wait for Zorf to feed instead of immediately feeding herself, and boom, perfect RNG right there. So in this tank is like the start of the resource-reliant fish, such as star catchers, relying on the star guppies for food, and they produce money based on it. So the star guppies, the stars themselves only give 40 coins, whereas the gold coin gives 35, so you really want the star catchers to grab the stars. Sometimes you'll see me click stars, I mean, also partially on accident, but also at the bottom if they like drift there for a while and I know a star catcher isn't gonna get to it. But the biggest thing to keep track of is like your large guppies being hungry, and it can get hard. You see, like, luckily there a Zorf food pellet was drifting down, so I could tell immediately when they were hungry, so I just had a star potion ready to feed it. So for all these resource reliant pets, like the star catchers on the stars, and in tank 3 with the beetle munchers reliant on the beetles, you keep a decent ratio of the producers to the consumers. It's more risky at like lower numbers, but a 2-to-1 ratio with like 2 times the amount of star catchers to the star guppies. So in this tank we get 2 star guppies and 4 star catchers. That's like the ideal, I guess, a greedy sort of ratio, and if you're starting out, probably get it more closer to 1-to-1. You also don't have to get as many star catchers, but the numbers I use are pretty close, if not like the ideal numbers to get. Yeah, like, if you're starting out, you can get 3 star guppies here, and it helps a lot more, especially because, oh man, let me tell you, star catchers are the dumbest fish. Okay, so I actually get 3 to 5 here, which is an alright ratio. It's not 2-to-1, but it's a lot safer than getting 6, because the star catchers are very dumb. They take stars from each other. They'll go to like one, like not close to them, or like, you'll see it throughout the runs, and you'll see various runners' frustration about them. Anybody can tell you the star catchers, as cute as they are very dumb. So another thing with the star guppies and wanting to see if they're hungry, like I said at the start of the tank, when the Zorf pellet came down and I could tell that he was hungry, like very clearly, like this. Like, oh, I see him going towards it, and now I feed him. What people do, and myself included, you kind of click a food at the bottom of the tank, and then you see what fish is hungry. That way you don't have to wait for Zorf to drop a pellet and then, cause potential chaos. So here we unlock Vert, who gives a bit less money than Nico, but he gives it, a bit more consistently, which is nice. We use him until we get Meryl, I believe. Yeah, we use for 2-3 and 2-4. So we got bad RNG here with the guppies not growing right away. But in this tank, we get 5 guppies to 8 star catchers. So Vert's really kind of good here, because we get 5 guppies right at the start. And sometimes I like to wait to make sure the fish that are hungry are fed first. Yeah, this tank's pretty straightforward. We get 5 guppies / star guppies to 8 star catchers, because that's, safer. You can stretch it with like 9 to 10, but this tank has a very formidable foe by the name of Gus, or Alien Type G. He is infamous for destroying runs, and I think he leaves a strong blow in this run. So usually you want... Perfect. So yeah, a guppy grew, so I was able to get 2 food quantities. Which, having 2 food pellets is very nice. You see how I just easily train him to the right and stuff, like very smoothly, and that's like ideally how you want to deal with Gus. The problem is when you have tons of star catchers and stuff in the tank too, he kind of just shreds them, and he kind of has a mind of its own. So something I've noticed and play around during runs is that he likes to go to the right a lot more than he does to the left. You'll see sometimes you'll potentially see in the run that if there's something to the right, I put it to the left, and he kind of like hesitates between the two, which he does prioritize food over fish, but he also seems to just prioritize things to the right of him. So it's really easy to, a lot easier to train him to the right like this than it is to the left. Now, I don't know why, just some weird coding from the early 2000s, but it is what it is. With Gus, I always like to get, if I know a Gus is going to happen in the tank, I always like to get a quantity upgrade. Now you can do without it, and sometimes I do, but not only is it slower because you have to wait for a food pellet for him to eat it before you can drop your next one, but it's also a lot more dangerous. So really, it's like 999 times out of 1,000 you want to upgrade your food. And also sometimes, you know, for new runners, or if you're just struggling against Gus, feel free to upgrade to like the green food or even pale food if you want, because that Gus, it deals more damage to Gus and it can just shred him. Yeah, doing a perfect Gus with one food is very scary. You have to have like perfect mouse placement for tracking Gus. Even then, you basically won't. You see there, I even upgraded the food because I can kind of afford 200 coins at this point. Yeah, so there he kind of flowed to the left a lot better because I had like, when the second he eats a food or something, he immediately looks to the next closest thing. And so the thing with 2 pellets is if you have the ability to drop another pellet before he eats that one, he immediately, you know, you can train him a lot quicker like that, instead of him finding the new food. If you only have 1 pellet, him like, oh, you put this new food in front of me, then he eats it, then goes towards a fish for maybe like half a second, then you place the food, etc, etc. So that's it for this tank. Gus is a menace, but sometimes, you know, it's better safe than sorry, especially like, you know, just casually, definitely just upgrade your food stuff. There's no reason not to. It's also just nice to have for the tank. But the reason why we don't, or like I don't sometimes, is because you want to save your money for the other things like getting a star catcher and start to accelerate your money production. So here we're off to 2-4. We get Rufus, who's useless because we want money making pets and speed over killing aliens. So here we got good RNG. We still have Vert, Nico, and Zorf, same pets. This tank is really the same thing. The only exception is the robot alien D, type D. And this easiest enemy in the game to deal with. If I had like, I'd rather deal with like 3 of these guys at once instead of like 1 Gus or a Psycho Squid. He's the quickest to deal with. His rockets don't have the iframes, as like I talked about earlier, the aliens having the iframes when they flash white. So you can just immediately destroy the rockets when you're fast clicking on top of him. As you can see, like the rockets are just a non-factor. And the hitbox himself, because he's on the bottom of the tank, he doesn't hurt fish like the star catchers or anything at the bottom. But yeah, that's it for this tank. We use the ratio of like 6 or 7 guppies to 12 star catchers. I usually just go for 7. I think, yeah, I have 7 guppies here. If you have 1 star catcher, you can get like 1 to 2, or if you have 1 star guppy, you get like 1 to 2 star catchers, and then, you know, kind of keep more star catchers as star guppies as you increase your ratio up until the final point, where in this tank it's like 7 to 12 ratio, which is a safe but still fast ratio that I do. Another thing that I haven't really talked about yet is when you want to make a star guppy, you know, you feed it a large guppy like the star potion, and then he grows. And so usually, like the exact spot of where, I'm trying to find a point where I feed a guppy, the spot where the perfect placement to place food for a guppy is like right above their head a little bit. So you see, like right there, I put it, let's go back a few frames. I put it kind of above it and in front of it a little bit. And that, like placing it here, that guppy is always going to eat it. Sometimes he might like go over it or something, but if you place it in more careful, you can really get these sneaky sort of feeding right here. So you see how this guppy might turn around for it, but yeah, he slowed down a little bit. He even like opened his mouth to eat it, but obviously he didn't get it. And so that's just a little tip to, if you're having trouble kind of getting your star guppies up and running. Alright, so here we unlock Meryl, which is very useful for us, and we use her for this tank and the entirety of tank 3, but not tank 4, you know, and I'll get to that later. But you know what Meryl does? She just sings and makes the coins, like the guppies that can drop coins. The one little thing with her though is that, or something that you can hope for, you know, for RNG, is that, you know, we got the guppy to grow immediately here. That's really good because we can immediately create 2 other guppies, which, you know, we could potentially have 2 to 3 guppies, or 2 to 4 guppies be medium by the time Meryl sings, and she sings around like 34-35 seconds, like the same time Nico creates his first pearl. Yeah, okay, so we didn't get 3 guppies grown, and so Meryl creates 3 coins for us, and we get coins. The nice and annoying thing is that Meryl sings for all the fish, but not like, you know, a Beetle muncher or a carnivore or a ultravore, you know, she only drops it for the guppies. Oh, and this reminded me. So right when I got a large guppy here, I immediately buy out the rest of my guppies, because like when you have less guppies, you can just have Zorf feed everything, and that way you know, it grows faster with the green food and you save a bit of money. But when I need more guppies for later in the tank, so when I get a large guppy, I don't mind, you know, it being a little slower on these guys, because I'm still going to be a bit behind on money regardless to get the star catchers and stuff, and star guppies. Yeah, I always wait for my star potion and then feed star guppy, then get like a star catcher or 2. And yeah, and the nice thing with Meryl is that, you know, as you just saw, like, it'll make the star guppies themselves drop 3 stars, which is very nice when you have a ton of star catchers on this tank, because, you know, it'll feed them and stuff, and give you a quick burst of money, because when you feed a star catcher, they also give diamonds. Although be careful, because a lot of stars will get wasted, so be sure to, you know, click a few or like half, you know, depending on the feel for it when they drop down. So that's it for 2.5. It can get kind of hectic with Meryl. You know, don't feel too bad if you miss some things, because I miss plenty of, you know, things that I would like to not. The hardest thing though with when it gets around this stage is making sure you're paying attention to your large guppies and how hungry they are to make them star guppies, so that you can keep up the rate of star catchers. You know, if you're newer, don't feel bad if you miss a few, or you don't have to get up to this amount of numbers, but these numbers are definitely the faster. If you want to play it safe though too, you can also just like throughout this just keep buying some more guppies, so that way if like Gus comes through and shreds them all, or half of them, you know, you still have some more on the way kind of right away. So that's it for 2.5. Remember to, you know, click through the egg screen and click through the bonus round starting. Yeah, we unlocked Wadsworth, which is useless. For this tank we just get Zorf, Meryl, Nico again, and we got first growth on our large guppy here. So here we go, we got 3 guppies grown at least, maybe even 4. Yeah, so we got 4 here. So when Meryl sings, boom, we just got that many more coins. That's what I was talking about earlier, that an RNG dependent boost in money. So with this tank, we just get our 4 guppies, and for all of tank 3, we just get 4 guppies. You don't want to get too many more, because you want to get your guppy crunchers. And in this tank we only get 1, because the egg price cost is pretty low and there's no beetle munchers yet. You know, we always click the beetles when there's no beetle muncher. Make sure you feed the guppy crunchers. And the thing is, it gets annoying with Zorf, so that's another sort of thing to keep track of, because you bring down the newly bought guppies to feed the guppy crunchers with some food. Like, you've kind of clicked some food around the guppy cruncher, and then the guppy will drag down to it. But if your other guppies are green and Zorf makes some food, it can kind of throw it all off. So you want to be careful with that. I choose to not feed the guppy cruncher here, because I know I'll get another beetle out, and by the time, you know, if I feed him another guppy, this is kind of borderline in this exact case, but, you know, I save the money not having to buy a guppy, but the beetles only give 150 anyway, so it's not like I'm making that much money. Usually you can get 2 beetles out from 1 guppy food. But yeah, you see, oh, Seymour. See, like, we got to 1,000 anyway pretty quickly. There might have been another Beetle come out in time, but it would have been about the same amount of speed because having to buy the Guppy. So again, we go Marozorf and Nico. Yeah, now we have Beetle Munchers, and you'll see that I just clicked a Beetle to get money, and I kind of wait to buy a Beetle Muncher because the Beetle Munchers are usually pretty hungry right when they come in, and they can even starve if... Yeah, you see how he flashed green for a second that he was hungry? I would have been fine there because he made another Beetle pretty quick, but it's better to be safe than sorry. I've definitely had runs like slowed down a lot because of, you know, just a Beetle Muncher dying like that. If you want to really stretch the boundaries of like the Beetle Munchers being hungry, you can, instead of buying a Beetle Muncher here, instead of buying a Guppy Cruncher here, I could have, you know, just bought another Beetle Muncher, because you can sustain a 1-to-2 ratio with these guys too, just like the Star Catchers. But again, it's very kind of finicky. It's a lot better with these guys because they actually track and go to a Beetle. Like, they can go up and down throughout the tank, not just left and right. So sometimes, if a Beetle Muncher just got fed, I'm like, oh, okay, I know I can get another Beetle Muncher to eat the next Beetle while this one isn't hungry enough yet before I buy my next Guppy Crunchers to produce more Beetles. And that's just like, it's a bit more greedy and more risky, so I don't really recommend doing that if you're starting out. But for those wanting to save a bit more time or just like, you know, for the heck of it, go for that. Here we get 2 Guppy Crunchers and 3 Beetle Munchers. We could go 2 to 4, but it's really not as 1-to-2 ratio as the Star Catchers. It's more like 2/3 to 1 ratio. So like, for example, in 3-2 I get 2 Guppy Crunchers and then 3 Beetle Munchers, and in 3-3 I get a 4-to-5 ratio, in 3-4 I get a 7-to-10 ratio, and in 3-5 I get a 9-to-12 ratio, which I could probably go like 9-to-14 or maybe even 15, but at that point you're getting so many pearls and stuff that the acceleration isn't gonna matter that much. But yeah, make sure you always have, you know, your Guppy Crunchers fed with Guppies, and that Zorf isn't messing it up and like griefing your tank. That's all there really is for Beetle Munchers. You'll also see me towards the end of tanks, you know, I'll start clicking on the Beetles and grabbing them like this, because they're not going to starve by the time the end of the tank, so I'm just trying to get as much money as quickly as possible. And here we unlock Shrapnel, who is the most efficient money-making pet, and we actually switch him out for Nico, because in these tanks Meryl's better than, say, Nico for example, because we have these Guppies and he churns out more just money over time than Nico does. Maybe not initially while the Guppies are growing, but the triple like drops of the coins really adds up for 4 Guppies. And yeah, Shrapnel, every 17 seconds he drops a bomb, you know, that gives us good amount of money. He makes more money quicker than Nico. So switching him out for Nico is, like, I guess ideal, and we obviously still keep Zorf to grow the Guppies right away. So in this tank we have to deal with another very annoying alien, which is the Psycho Squid. And the annoying thing about him is that once he's hurt for a bit less than half his health, and also 18 laser 1 clicks. So you might like see me counting sometimes, so that way I don't accidentally hit him while he's blue, which heals him, because I want to make sure I kill him in 2 cycles. Now here I hit him away. You can kind of afford to hit him once if you don't hit him, and you make sure you actually hit him 18 times before he goes dormant. Here, yeah, I kill him before he goes blue for a second time, and that's like 2 cycling him, which is ideal. You know, it sucks to have him just sit in blue form and just be invincible and heal for 10 seconds, but it's a lot better to have him only do that once. So sometimes I'll upgrade my laser just to ensure that I can 2-cycle him, maybe even like during if I know I mess it up, or just ahead of time just to be safe and I can afford the money. You'll see that especially in Tank 4 because the money's a lot more ramped up there. But yeah, Psycho Squid, you know, if you're newer, don't feel bad to like just heal him maybe a bit to save your fish, because at the end of the day 10 to 20 more seconds of having to deal with Psycho Squid is way better than having a Beetle Muncher dying or some Guppy Crunchers dying. If it's just the Guppies at this point in the tank, sacrifices can be made, you know. You don't need to save all the animals. Now here, as I was saying earlier, I opted to, because this Beetle Muncher was running in, I didn't want, you know, I saw this Beetle muncher coming in, and I didn't want the Beetle muncher to die, so I'm like, okay, Guppy, it's your time to die. So here we unlock Gumbo, which is, again, useless to us in every way. Again, you see my cursor's waiting on the buy slot. I'm spam clicking here to immediately buy 2 Guppies. That way we can potentially get 3 or 4 grown in time for Meryl to sing. But alas, they didn't get first growth RNG. Yeah, you see there, I actually kind of misplayed there, which I was just spam clicking to get it as quickly as possible, but I forgot that I had 300 coins because I grabbed a shrapnel bomb, and so I accidentally made an extra guppy, which not that big of a deal, but it's just a bit slower because you want to get that first guppy cruncher right away. So there's not much else in this tank until Ulysses, type U. This guy can really deal some damage, especially when you have a ton of stuff on your screen. When it's like this, it's so easy to deal with him like this. You know, you just keep away from your fish and then immediately hit them back into him like that. Bada bing, bada boom. But the thing is, if there's like a fish right here, and you hit it back in, it will vaporize the fish. See here, I'm training him away, and I wait a little bit, because you saw when those orbs came out initially, I could have hit him back in right here, but that Beetle muncher would have died. So I had a nice gap here to hit him back in. And here, again, I wait, I hit it into the wall, and then very precariously, ooh, yeah, see, it's very dangerous. I very precariously hit it around there, and then he actually died to that one. But I, you know, my insane reaction times reacted and just hit it out of the way of that Beetle muncher. So that's it for this tank. You know, things can get pretty hectic with lots of clicking and stuff. You know, the later in the tanks, especially when you have Ulysses pop up or Psycho Squid pop up, and there's just so many things on the screen. And it's especially rough in tanks 2 and 3 because you're always going to have like your resource makers on the bottom, whereas in tank 4 or tank 1, you know, you don't have things stuck to the bottom. Another thing here is that, you know, about this time I stopped feeding everything and clicking as many beetles as possible to just get as much money for the final stretch to the eggshell part. You know, some things probably even die, like yeah, Beetle muncher death, but boom, 10,000. And here we get Blip. Now, Blip is very useful, but, and we'll talk about Blip later, but we don't use him in tank 3-5 because Meryl is more efficient here, and we still need to kind of build up some money to get, like, we don't really have enough raw money makers to get up to a guppy cruncher right away, and so we use Meryl in this tank because we get these guppies early. In tank 4 we swap Meryl out because, okay, yeah, so the reason why we don't use Blip is because we have Zorf and Meryl instead of, like, you know, say Nico and Blip and Shrapnel, which is what we use in tank 4-1 and 4-2. But that's because we have, you know, the guppies right away, and we want these guppies to get grown and then Meryl singing, because that's still faster money creation, and all the things are gonna unlock anyway by the time we get money. So we're not really kind of skipping waiting for that growth, and I'll talk about why it's a lot more important to unlock things right away with Blip in tank 4-1 because of the breeders. But yeah, that's why we use these two pets. You know, we rely on the guppies and all that. 3-5, nothing really else to say on this tank. Just minimize your damages, play it safe if you have to, maybe sacrifice some guppies instead of... Or yeah, another thing with the Type U aliens, they always track, it always launches, and same with Type D, the Mr. Destructoid, they always track the farthest thing that it can kill. You know, you have some time, and so if there's a ton of like Beetle munchers and stuff around it, say like here, when there's a lot more things on the screen, and a Type U appears, it's honestly better to just have the orbs go out and kill maybe 1 or 2 things if there's a lot of things right by him. Just like, it'd be better to just let the orbs kill the one thing instead of clicking the orbs and making them kill everything and laser across the screen. So here we unlock Rhubarb, who's the most useless pet ever. So the biggest thing here is now we use Blip, Shrapnel, and Nico, which is just pure money making stuff. We don't need Zorf anymore to grow our guppies, and we don't use Meryl because we don't really have guppies, we have breeders now. And so normally in tank 4, the things at the top unlock at the rate like guppies grow like the others, but when we start out with a breeder and have to wait for the guppy to grow, that's why we don't use Blip in 3.5, because, you know, the guppies grow anyway, but here we would have to wait for a guppy to spawn and then have it grow to unlock everything at the top. So instead, we just get the money makers and then just unlock everything immediately. So here we get 2 breeders and we just save for a carnivore and then we get 3 carnivores. Pretty straightforward. In 4.1 there's no ultravores at all to deal with. I'll talk more about ultravores later. But yeah, Blip, not only, like the biggest reason we use Blip is, as I said, to unlock everything at the top 5 seconds into the tank. But it's also nice to know when fish are hungry so you can feed them as quick as possible to grow things. And also like where the aliens spawn, that's another useful thing, so you can kind of get a little bit of a window to plan around it. So yeah, it shows here so I can like kind of click and feed my fish up here to drag them over there right as he's spawning. But yeah, now I can talk about the iframes a bit more, because you can see the health bar goes down in like chunks, even though I'm like clicking way faster than the rate at which that's going down, because, you know, the iframes. So now this is just more of a visualization of it. So here we unlocked Nimbus, which is useless for us. And now in this, we get 3 breeders and then 5 carnivores, and then eventually 7 ultravores. The most important thing, like early on in these tanks, is to make sure that you have enough breeders to supply your carnivores. And so like the ratios, you kind of keep like a 2 to 3 ratio of like, so in 4.3, 4.4, and 4.5, I have 4 breeders and 6 carnivores. And that's like the quickest way to get, you know, money for your ultravore without, you know, losing too much momentum early on. And I'll get more into that when we're at 4.3. But 4.2 is pretty straightforward again. We do have ultravores, which are very nice because they give the juicy treasure chest. Yeah, when we slowly eventually get up to 10,000, we get our ultravore. And an ultravore like around 4 minutes or under 4 minutes is always a good time, a decent metric to keep track of. But you see here I upgraded food just to like kind of keep things alive, because especially right now I want to keep my breeders alive, so that way, maybe not so now that I have my ultravore, but I want to keep my breeders alive throughout. You want to make sure they're alive so the carnivores are fed. It also just is a lot quicker to feed because you don't have to wait for one food to be eaten before you can drop another food pellet. And also I have a lot of large guppies at this point, which, you know, compared to a treasure chest, 35 gold coins is nothing compared to the 2,000 treasure chest drop, but it really does add up over time. And, you know, you'll see I'll miss some coins in favor of some other stuff, and that's not really the end of the world. And, you know, if you're starting out and, you know, you can't really click all this stuff at once, don't worry about it. Just focus on like the treasure chests and the diamonds. That's really where the juice is at. So here we deal with Alien Type 2, which is one of the worst ones to deal with, because this tail is an active hitbox. So like as it goes across, you'll see boom, that guppy died. And I believe I dragged it across because I didn't want to risk this ultravore swimming down into it. And I'd rather just have like some dumb large guppy die instead of my precious ultravore. Another thing to watch out for is right when you kill this head, this one is immediately active and will seek out targets to eat. So you gotta be careful to watch the health bar on this one, which is nice that you have the health bar. You don't have to count your clicks or anything with Blip. Say there's like an ultravore right here, I might, you know, stagger click to make sure I can immediately go and hit him back the other way. You know, don't be afraid to take your time a bit. If it's way better than having an ultravore die, and I do that myself too. Oh yeah, another tip with the ultravores is that as an alien is spawning, like if you kind of know the times, it's like a minute 20, minute 30 in between each alien, like right as one dies, that's like kind of the timer. And it actually kind of follows the music cues, which you'll kind of get over time from running it. See, like, oh, I know an alien's going to spawn soon, especially because, you know, it tells you, but you need a bit more time before that because you want the ultravores to be kind of hungry so that you can create a bunch of you want the Ultravores to be hungry, so you can create a bunch of carnivores right before the alien spawns to make them all go up to the top. So that way you can easily just kind of bring the alien down to the bottom of the tank where there's nothing else to deal with. Just like this. And generally the Ultravores do sit at the top of the tank. That's just kind of how their AI works. But a lot of the time they drift down like this and just be big dumb hitboxes for the aliens to destroy. Yeah, that's about it for 4-2. Now here we unlock Amp, which is very useful. We swap out Nico because he doesn't make as much money as Shrapnel. The biggest deal with Amp is, you know, he zaps your guppies no matter the size and gives you a diamond for each one. So now we can get 4 breeders to get a bit more guppies, and then we can because we have more breeders, we can get 6 carnivores. And that's about a good number of breeders and carnivores, because by the time the alien is dealt with, you'll have about 4 or 5 guppies on the screen, and that way you can zap Amp with them and immediately get to about 1,000 gold and make a carnivore right away, and that accelerates you very quickly. See, now we actually got type G, and we don't have... This is kind of the worst times to deal with type G, because we really need to save our money to have like enough for a carnivore right away. Can't really afford spending 300 on a quantity. So here you'll see me dealing with type G with a single food pellet. You might be able to... You see how he still goes to the right very quickly, but you see even when there's another fish by him, he hesitates between them. And now if this breeder was on the right side of Gus, it would have been a lot harder to deal with. But luckily nothing bad happened there. So and then you see I immediately zap all of Amp, like all the guppies, and get my carnivore. So another a thing to keep in mind for this, when you kill all the guppies and then immediately make a carnivore, is that you can also kind of keep track of the breeder times yourself. Like, oh, this breeder didn't make a guppy in a while, but you know that's kind of hard to keep track of that. If you want, you know, it's good to just zap the guppies, get the money, and then maybe wait a little bit before you make your carnivore. In this case, it didn't matter because these two breeders immediately made carnivores, but especially if you're starting out, just play that better safe than sorry. And like, I even wait a little bit if I feel like, say like if when I zapped these guppies, like I zapped about 6 or 7 instead of 5, it would have been like, oh, that seems like a lot more were just created, so let me wait a little bit. There's a lot of little nuances like that you kind of just pick up over playing a while. Oh yeah, okay, there are the multiple alien spawnings is probably the more rough part. Here you see I focus dealing with the Psycho Squid and counting to 18, and then killing Balrog while that guy's dead. That's usually what you want to do. You want to kind of keep them separate, so when he goes blue, you're not immediately healing him while also hitting Balrog at the same time. Oh, that breeder got a bit close, but yeah, that was an example of like an ideal fight. You want to keep Balrog and Psycho Squid near each other, and when they first come in, you know, burst this guy down to his threshold of where he goes blue, which is 18 clicks if you want to count, or you know, if he goes blue you can just react. If you hit him once when he goes blue, if you were spam clicking him, so say like 18 times and then the 19th you hit him anyway, he can heal like once or twice and you can still get a 2 cycle there. But sometimes, you know, if I know I didn't get enough clicks in, or that, especially when there's 2 things you have to deal with, you kind of don't, or I healed him maybe once or twice to push him away from Ultravores and stuff, don't hesitate to grab a laser or anything just to ensure safety and to get it a 2 cycle. It is much better to wait and have to deal with a 3 cycle when you're still getting like your first Ultravore and stuff, because that 5,000 increased laser price money is way more of a time loss than like 10 or 15 seconds of another cycle on Psycho Squid. So that's about it for 4-3. When there's a lot more things on the screen like this, and there's aliens, you know, you want to just... right there I was a bit slow because I was trying to deal with 2 things at once, or I was trying to make sure I hit him. Oh, I actually had a leveled up laser. So I played that a bit poorly. If you have a level 2 laser, you can honestly just like group them up together, and you can burst down Psycho Squid from full in his second cycle all the way to 0 if you have the level 2 laser. I kind of played a bit unnecessarily greedy here and lost an Ultravore for it. And so here I get 10 Ultravores this time instead of 7 because the increasing price. And we've more or less mathed out / simulated these numbers, so it's all pretty even. So yeah, another thing I can talk about is with amp is that when you're kind of in this stage, you see that I actually have my pill food upgraded and quantity upgraded. Gus can appear in this tank as it did earlier, so that's nice. You can deal with him if he spawns, but it's also to like just deal with all your fish and stuff at the same time without having to feed them as much, and that way you can kind of keep them around, have them generate a bit of cash before, or like while you're waiting for amp to be ready to zap. And if you have the pill food, they grow into the medium and large guppies quicker to drop some money for you. See, like amp's active, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of fish on here, I'm clicking a lot, so here, let me just go ahead and zap everything, and then I missed some coins, but that's whatever, as long as you get all the important stuff. Oh, yeah, that was the end of the tank anyway. So that's another reason, like, if you're sitting on an amp charge and you're towards the end of a tank, just let it rip. You know, you don't can't save amp charge for next tank, so just let it rip, go to the next. Gash, useless at this point. So 4-4, you know, it's 4-3, 4-4, and 4-5 are all the same amp, blip, and shrapnel, and the same 4 breeder, 6 carnivores. The only difference is you get 10, 12, and 15 ultravores respectively for 4-3, 4-4, and 4-5. There's not really much of a difference between the two, except that it's just more to deal with. I think different aliens can spawn, such as like type 2. You can spawn again on this one, and later on, yeah, when you deal with multiple alien signatures, such as Ulysses and type D. Oh, another thing, you can tell which aliens are going to spawn based on the positions. If they're 2 at the same like elevation at the bottom, then it's always Ulysses and Destructoid, because you know, they're on the ground, they don't go up and down. But if there's one like say here and then one here, you always know it's Psycho Squid and Balrog. So you can, you know, adjust accordingly. So if you're later in the run, when you have like 10 or so Ultravores, and you see that it's Psycho Squid up, like one of them up here and one here, you're just like, oh, it's Psycho Squid, let me upgrade my laser real quick just to be safe and secure. And I might even do that this run. You see here Ulysses and type D spawn, and I just immediately keep them both in the corner together and just like spam click them and make sure that I'm hitting the things back into them. An annoying thing is that the rockets, I think, are clicked first instead of the Ulysses orbs, so stacking them can be kind of bad in that case, but having them in one spot is easier to deal with if you can afford it without all the Ultravores being, like, say if there were Ultravores right on top of them, I would just let the orbs go and kill something else, or wait until I can hit it into the edge of the tank later, as I said in tank 3. So yeah, that's it for 4-4. Be wary of the various aliens spawning, because type 2 can spawn, and so can the Ulysses and Destructor combo, and so can Psycho Squid and Balrog combo. Same in 4-5. So in 4-5, you know, it's the same sort of cycle. There's really nothing else to say. It's just the same thing, but you know, the longer egg part, there's nothing different between the two. Yeah, just make sure you keep in this stage, you keep your breeders alive, especially much more than the carnivores, because you can always buy more carnivores, but you can't buy more breeders right away that are able to create guppies. So if you lose a breeder, say I go down to 3 breeders here, then I can only support like 5 carnivores at max, and that slows down your rate of getting to Ultravores. Here, lots of Ultravores right around Ulysses. You see just right there, it's just unfortunate, just the Ultravore, oh, look at what's down here, and then just dies. Like, it is what it is. Again, the run's a lot more about minimizing damage. You know, that's great that only one Ultravore died there. If I was a bit earlier on in this tank, I probably would have bought another Ultravore to, you know, make money, but this tank is almost over with, so I'm just going through the final stretch. And this is another thing I can talk about. I usually buy the egg parts as I get them. One, so it kind of get a better sense of like how much money I have and like need to get, etc. But also because it's a very minor thing, but that way when I'm going to the next level, I don't have to click more than once to go to the next thing. It saves maybe like half a second at the most, like not even, but just a minor thing. It's more so to just kind of keep track of how much money I have and stuff like that, you know. Less about saving those frames. But yeah, do save those frames. So around this point now that I'm pretty close to the egg part, I'm not buying any more carnivores. If some ultravores starve, then so be it. Some of them might even die. And amp, always zap your amp right before. And then now here we go into the final boss of Doom, none other than Cyrax. So what I like to do for Cyrax and what I think is the most efficient is I immediately put him into a corner, usually just like a bottom corner. You know, I guess it doesn't really matter which one, but I like the side. I usually click here I switch to, you know, my left hand and double click, as I said how I do earlier, around right here, which keeps him pinned in the corner. And also these little Sylvesters have a huge hitbox. So you really, like, you'll see my cursor just stay here while these Sylvesters are just popping as they go by. Sometimes some get through if I'm not like shifting my cursor around a little bit around here based on where these guys are coming out of. You'll see like, I'll just like click there, yeah, you see how it died when I wasn't even close. Sometimes they like don't register, but yeah, this one that came out very fast, look how far it is when it dies, when I'm just like spam clicking Cyrax right by the head. Yeah, like right about here, like that's a crazy distance. Like they have a big hitbox, and what I see some runners do is they just really, I guess, sort of panic, because these guys can shred through your pets and you have to deal with them, but you keep them, you know, you keep your cursor around here just on the outside of, because Cyrax has a big hitbox himself. It's probably like about this big, but you know, I keep it inside of it for sure just to make sure I am not missing any clicks. I do want to go back a bit and talk about how earlier on in the start of this video, I talked about how when waiting for the aliens' iframes, I would, you know, sometimes jump around in between the aliens, and you might see me do that throughout, but this is the most important part, because Cyrax himself has the iframes, you can see him flashing white, and so when these bigger aliens spawn that don't just get insta-popped, but like little Sylvesters like Gus, you'll see me bounce between, and that way it's just dealing damage to both and getting rid of the other threat while maximizing the damage on Cyrax himself. Now I could talk about Ulysses a bit here, in the sense that I don't think I'm going to be doing this anymore, but you see what I kind of went for was to hit the orbs into Cyrax himself, and like they do deal a bit of damage, and like it's the most optimal strat is to keep Ulysses alive and then just like hit the orbs into Cyrax right away, but that's really hard to deal with, and like that's like kind of task levels of perfection, and like you see how I'm wasting time dealing with other stuff when I could be bouncing back and forth just between the two and just having maybe some, like, you have a ton of pets to, you know, we're not saving the animals so we have a ton of pets to leave and discard. Like you see, I'll just let these 3 rockets kill them and not waste time dealing with it and just instead focus on finishing off Cyrax. And you see when you have, and in this situation when you have Psycho Squid who goes dormant, that's really nice because you don't have to deal with an active second alien and you can just focus on dealing with Cyrax. And here at the end, the final push, I just don't even consider Psycho Squid at all. Even if he went active there, like at the end, he wouldn't be able to get any in time. There's really not much else to talk about in the Cyrax fight. The other alien spawn that didn't show in here was Balrog and Sylvester duo, but those are pretty easy to deal with. You know, you can just bounce around, and you know, and for newer runners, don't worry about, you know, bouncing between perfectly. That's more of like, I guess, a more difficult strat, and it probably would only save maybe 5 seconds at most, like perfection levels of doing it, compared to just like you know, dealing with the alien and then going back to Cyrax. You know, the most important thing is when you're this far in the run, don't let your pets die. Now, sometimes it's fine to make sacrifices, like when I had the destructor up shooting rockets at things like this, I just let these 3 guys die because, you know, I just was dealing with that and Cyrax, and you can make sacrifices to save time. But just be careful you don't make too many sacrifices and then like accidentally have your pets die. And then because I did have a run at one point, it wasn't a good run, but a run nonetheless that got to this point, and then I was playing way too risky and greedy and all my pets died and I actually lost to Cyrax, which you then just have to redo it, like, you know, which is obviously a brutal time lost and a run killer for any sort of decent run. So yeah, that's hopefully a good analysis on the video. I hope that I was able to go over everything in good enough detail, but not unnecessary detail. You know, if there's any questions you have or any sort of, you know, comment you might want to leave, feel free to just, like, you know, leave a comment or something, and I'd be more than happy to elaborate in more depth on things. But I believe I covered everything. There's a lot of little things to cover that I might have missed. Yeah, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, smiley face. It means a lot and it puts a smile on my face. So, yes, thank you for watching.